on this Saturday night, grounded.
We are incredibly disgusted.
Flight attendants fire back over government intervention in the Air Canada strike.
Now is not the time to take risks with our economy.
What it could mean for tens of thousands of stranded travelers. An 8-year-old boy killed by a stray bullet in his bed.
He was in his home, the safest place that you can be.
What Toronto police are saying about this senseless death. Deadly flash floods in South Asia. The anger over a perceived lack of action, with hundreds dead and more still missing. And an emotional display of cross-border bonds.
Thank you. Don't give up on us.
People in Quebec and Vermont come together to show the strength of our country's friendship instead of opposition.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Just hours after Air Canada flight attendants walked off the job, the federal government has stepped in to put an end to a strike that has already created travel chaos here at home and around the world.
The potential for immediate negative impact on Canadians and our economy is simply too great. These parties have had months at the negotiation table. They've had support through the Federal Mediation Service, and they have been unable to cross the finish line.
The federal jobs minister says a night of failed negotiations led her to impose binding arbitration, which could lead to a back-to-work order within days. For many, though, the impact is already being felt, with hundreds of flights canceled, tens of thousands stranded, and no clear sign of when things may return to normal. Tonight, the union representing flight attendants is blasting the government's decision, saying it violates their charter rights. We begin our coverage with Sean O'Shea, who's at Canada's busiest airport, with more. Sean.
Carolyn, confusion, frustration, fatigue. That's what a lot of travelers experienced here and at other airports. Powerless flyers in the middle of a battle between flight attendants and Canada's biggest airline.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Flight attendants out on the picket line hours after a strike deadline passed. After 9 months of bargaining, its leaders said they were fighting for a better deal for members.
Air Canada has called us unreasonable for asking for better than poverty wages.
But just 2 hours later,
this dispute will not be resolved quickly enough.
Canada's jobs minister announced she was stepping in to end the dispute
by imposing final and binding arbitration and to extend the terms of the existing collective agreement until a new one is determined by the arbitrator.
Effectively imposing an agreement 10 years after flight attendants last had a chance to approve a deal.
Our members won't get to ratify it. 10 years, no say.
As soon as they found out that the minister was stepping in to end this strike, this is what members had to say.
The message is shame on you. Shame on you.
With all Air Canada flights cancelled, passengers have been forced to find other ways to get to their destinations and bear the cost of hotels and other expenses. This area of Toronto's Pearson Airport was clogged with flyers just trying to get information.
Because nobody cares if your flight got cancelled. We're here with nobody helping us. We don't know what to do, where to go.
These Italian travelers found out their flight to Vancouver isn't going. They were frustrated with Air Canada.
And that's dreadful, that's awful. I mean, it's something I would have never thought it could have happened in a country like Canada.
But flight attendants say they believe the public is mostly on their side.
We are the brand, and to not recognize that and to not give us a livable wage is absolutely criminal.
Now the dispute is in the hands of the Canada Industrial Relations Board, which has the authority to get workers back on the job.
Sometimes it can take 24 to 48 hours for the board to complete that work.
Air Canada told Global News it's premature to comment about restarting the airline, advising passengers not to come to the airport unless they have a confirmed flight. However, before this labor dispute began, they said it could take up to a week to reinstate their full schedule. Carolyn.
Sean O'Shea at Toronto's Pearson Airport tonight. Thank you. The chaos and uncertainty has been felt at airports right across the country today, including in Vancouver, where our Taya Fast has been speaking with some of those left in limbo. Taya.
Carolyn, here at YVR, where Air Canada accounts for about a quarter of all flights, over 100 flights were canceled Saturday morning.
Hell no, we won't go! Hell no, we won't go!
Chants from flight attendants echoed outside the terminal, frustrated that the federal government stepped in. More than 600 flights nationwide were canceled in preparation for the strike, leaving more than 100,000 passengers stranded or scrambling.
I'm incredibly disappointed. As you can see from everyone behind us, this is not just flight attendants, this is the transportation industry. And I assure you, this is going to start some fire.
More than 600 flights nationwide were canceled in preparation for the strike, leaving more than 100,000 passengers stranded or scrambling. For travelers just trying to get home, to business trips and family vacations, the impact is still being felt.
So we took the night bus from Calgary to here to catch a flight for Cathay to go to Singapore.
We just take one vacation a year, and we've been looking forward to it. So as crazy as the bus sounds, I'm so happy that we are here and we can continue with our plans.
And while the picket lines may soon come down, the travel chaos isn't. Passengers at YVR should expect delays and cancellations to continue throughout the weekend. Carolyn?
Taya Fast at Vancouver International Airport. Thank you. Now to a horrific story out of Toronto. Police are investigating the random killing of an 8-year-old boy. He was at home in bed when he was shot and killed by a stray bullet. As Lexi Benedict reports, investigators are still searching for the person responsible.
What's happened here is a cowardly, disgusting act of violence.
A family shattered after an 8-year-old boy was killed by a stray bullet while sleeping inside his North York apartment on Friday night.
The saddest part of this is this young boy was in bed at home when this happened. He was in his home, the safest place that you can be with your family, in bed, when he was struck by a stray bullet.
The family has identified the victim as 8-year-old Jave Roy. A family spokesperson says Roy was lying down with his mother when it happened.
There are no words that can capture the pain of losing a child in such a horrific and senseless way. This young boy should have had his whole life ahead of him. We owe it to him, and we owe it to every child to do better.
Police were called to Martha Eaton Way and Trethewey Drive just before 12:30 for reports of gunshots, finding the young boy with a gunshot wound. He was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Residents report hearing over a dozen shots fired. The scene spans the apartment complex and neighboring plaza with more than 24 evidence markers. Police say the shooting took place outside by this sign towards the building, and 2 other units were hit by gunfire, but no one else was hurt. So far, no suspect or vehicle description has been released. Toronto Police Chief spoke with the grieving family at a nearby apartment before speaking to media with a message to those responsible.
We will leave no stone unturned in our pursuit of you, and we will bring you to justice.
While it's still early on in the investigation, Toronto police say they are allocating every resource in the city to find who is responsible and hold them accountable. In the meantime, anyone with further information is being asked to contact investigators. Lexi Benedict, Global News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is praising what he calls an openness by the U.S. to provide security guarantees to Ukraine without clarifying what those could be. In a statement, Carney said robust and credible security guarantees are essential to any just and lasting peace between Russia and Ukraine. No deal was struck yesterday when U.S. President Donald Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. But we are learning more about what did happen between the two leaders and what might happen next. Candice Cole reports.
There's no deal until there's a deal.
U.S. President Donald Trump's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin Friday yielded no tangible results in terms of peace for Ukraine, as the two heads of state met in Anchorage without Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky present. Speaking during a press conference where no questions were allowed, Putin told reporters all of Russia's concerns must be addressed and called for a, quote, fair balance of security for Europe and the world.
And Mr. Putin got what he wanted. He's back on stage. He could meet with the leader of the Western world.
Political scientist Clemens Fisher says the meeting between Trump and Putin was more about peace between the U.S. and Russia. Ukraine was merely an excuse for the two superpowers to hold court.
For Ukraine, it was a very sad moment because at the end of the day, Ukraine wasn't even on the table as a chance to see that they might possibly get a truce or a ceasefire. Nothing was on the table.
But now Zelensky is poised to meet with Trump Monday in the Oval Office after a conversation with Trump late Friday, during which Trump reportedly told him Putin would freeze the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia in exchange for the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Saturday, Trump praised his meeting with Putin, saying the best way to end the war between Russia and Ukraine is to broker a peace agreement rather than a ceasefire, which, quote, oftentimes do not hold up. It's a reversal from Trump's past efforts. Putin has long said Moscow is not interested in a temporary truce. Zelensky, in a post on X, says he and Trump are coordinating with European leaders, but says a lasting peace must be achieved. He's called for stronger sanctions against Russia if Putin acts in bad faith and greater security guarantees from the U.S. and EU.
For the Europeans, it is, I think, one of the last calls to wake up and to start building up the armed forces again, because they have to do anything to show deterrence against the Russians.
Monday's meeting with Trump will be Zelensky's first visit to the White House since their disastrous encounter in February. If it goes well, Trump says he will schedule another meeting with Putin, but Zelensky has already said ceding land to Russia is not an option. Carolyn?
Candice Cole in Washington, thank you. Hundreds of protests took place across the U.S. today, condemning efforts backed by Trump to redraw congressional districts in favor of Republicans. The demonstrations happened as Republican state lawmakers in Texas are pushing to pass a new congressional map to help their chances in the 2026 midterms. Rain and cooler temperatures help the wildfire fight on both coasts. Coming up, the positive turn for firefighters from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland. There's some positive news on the wildfire front across Canada. In Newfoundland, 3 fires held steady overnight as temperatures finally dropped. There's even a frost advisory around St. John's. The province says a shift in winds is allowing ground crews to attack the northern edge of the Kingston fire, which has destroyed about 100 homes. New Brunswick has contained a fire burning near the community of Lavalette, but residents there are still on evacuation alert. There are now 6 fires burning out of control across the province. Rain is forecast tomorrow, but it could also bring lightning. And heavy rain across the west coast is slowing 2 wildfires on Vancouver Island. Firefighters say the weather has tempered the biggest fire burning near the city of Port Alberni, but it's also creating terrain challenges. Another fire closer to Nanaimo is being held. So far this year, it's western provinces that have bared the brunt of the wildfires, with millions of hectares burnt. This new reality in Canada is why many provinces are pushing fire prevention as key. Eric Sorensen looks into the wildfire patterns over recent years as we plan for what's ahead.
No 2 years are alike, but as temperatures rise and drought conditions increase, Canada's boreal forests are getting drier and more susceptible to wildfires.
Things get hotter sooner than they ever have before, all of which makes wildfire seasons longer.
Canada's abundance of forests, once viewed as insurance against climate change, are also becoming part of the problem.
Over the last 10 years, you can see the growth in areas burned by wildfires, mostly in Canada's northern forests. The worst year in history was 2023. Last year, not as bad, but now 2025, serious fires early this summer in the prairies, and they continue to pop up from the west coast to Atlantic Canada. There's never been a year like 2023. Over 17 million hectares burned, way above the 10-year average. But in 2025, more than 7.5 million hectares have been destroyed, the second worst on record, and it's only August. This year, between Saskatchewan and Manitoba, there have been more than 5 million hectares burned, 2/3 of the total for the country. And look at the contrast. Quebec, remarkably, just 5,000 hectares. The number of fires, Quebec has had only 226 wildfires. That's half its 10-year average, and fewer than New Brunswick, which is way smaller, with 248. and Newfoundland and Labrador 213 wildfires, 3 times above its average.
I think it's about prevention. I think it's about awareness. Do we limit where people can have campfires? All those sorts of things.
Newfoundland's premier and all political leaders see the need to prepare for the future. Experts say long-term adaptation is required, retrofitting homes and buildings, changing landscaping practices, and managing forests that are near communities.
This is our new reality. These kinds of wildfire seasons are unfortunately becoming the norm, and we're going to have to learn to deal with them.
And, says Ryan Ness, it's not enough to adapt. He says renewed efforts to curb greenhouse gases are necessary because it will get worse.
We need to take action both to prepare for this new reality, but to also limit how much worse it's going to get by cutting off greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as we can.
Wildfires affect some parts of Canada more directly than others, but, say experts, all Canadians must prepare for wildfire smoke becoming a persistent health risk every year. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Deadly flash floods in South Asia demonstrate how that region is also vulnerable to climate change. That story straight ahead. The first major hurricane of the Atlantic season has rapidly intensified into a Category 5 storm. Hurricane Erin was just a tropical storm yesterday. It's now packing winds around 250 kilometers an hour as it moves through the Caribbean. Erin isn't currently forecast to make landfall, but there are heavy rainfall warnings for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Forecasters warn Erin could triple in size next week, creating dangerous conditions along the east coast. In South Asia, more than 300 people between India and Pakistan have died in the last 48 hours from floods and landslides triggered by monsoon rains. Much of the damage has been dealt to Pakistani and Indian territories within the Kashmir region. Vincent McAviney explains why it's become an area that's especially vulnerable to the effects of climate change.
In Pakistan's mountainous northwest region and the parts of Kashmir it administers, this week's flash floods have washed away homes and destroyed swathes of land, leaving communities reeling. Many people climbed the mountains and some people went to the sides. They saved their own lives. Where we are standing, there were 3 or 4 houses. They were completely washed away by the water. With many still missing, the search for survivors is underway as people begin clearing up. No politicians, no government officials showed up. No one came to help. When the flood hit, our house collapsed and 6 of our family members were swept away. Emergency teams are also among the dead, with 5 crew members killed when their M17 helicopter crashed due to bad weather. In the Indian-administered part of Kashmir, rescuers pulled bodies from the mud and rubble on Friday after a flood crashed through a Himalayan village, killing at least 60 and washing away dozens more. Suddenly, the hill collapsed and water began coming towards us. It took us downstream. Cars were above us. Electricity poles had fallen down. A study released this week found rainfall in Pakistan between June and July was up to 15% heavier because of global warming. Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, which scientists say can cause more intense monsoons, with deforestation for transport routes and tourist accommodation also causing problems.
This is madness. It's inviting further future disasters. In the past, it is this forest that has held back destructive avalanches.
Government forecasters have warned heavy rainfall is expected until Thursday in the region, with more flash flooding likely. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
A demonstration of friendship at a time of division. Why hundreds turned out at the Quebec-Vermont border. Next. And finally tonight, a sign of solidarity despite mounting political tensions. Hundreds of people gathered at a border crossing between Quebec and Vermont to show there's more that unites them than divides. Phil Carpenter reports.
Only a gap in a hedge between two fields separated Americans in Berkshire, Vermont, and Canadians in Philipsburg, Quebec, an hour and a half south of Montreal, Saturday.
We are not at war with each other.
Hundreds gathered to vent their frustration over some of the Trump administration policies, stressing that Americans are scared.
They didn't vote for a fascist state. They voted for cheaper eggs. And now we find ourselves watching the rise of totalitarianism.
They point out that Canadians are scared too and angry, concerned with the divisions they argue the American government is causing.
Because everyone in my family lives in Canada, and I have cousins that won't come across anymore because of what they hear.
They stress that their purpose was to stand up for democracy and peace, and also against President Trump's treatment of Canada.
The only way to deal with the bully is to confront the bully.
Nothing but a red string was needed to show where the border exists between the two countries and the neighboring communities. There are friends who live on either side.
The things today made me cry because I feel heard.
Protesters say they wanted to show that regardless of divisions created between the two countries, from the tariff war to threats against Canada's sovereignty, that the friendship between the two countries and the two communities will endure.
We're not alone. The people in the United States are not alone. We have a resistance. We're here, and we're going to organize ourselves, and we're here.
As a demonstration of that friendship, that closeness, people on either side of that red string held hands forming human chains and stood in silent reflection. But that wasn't enough. Because afterwards, people spontaneously reach out across the string to greet their neighbors. Borders be damned. Despite the frustration and fear, this protest gives many hope.
Vermonters love to go to Montreal. And Montrealers love to go to Vermont, you know, and we're the same family, exactly.
They vow to keep standing up for what they believe in until things change. Phil Carpenter, Global News, Philipsburg, Quebec.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Your Canada is going global this week. We're showing you pictures of Canadian pride we've received from all over the world. So tonight, we're showcasing Giegen Anderbrandts, Germany, Karor, Palau, and Upper Waterton Lake in Montana. Please keep sending your pictures from wherever you are to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.